Hey everyone, my name is Ryan. I'm the Health Services Engagement Lead to the American Red Cross chapter here in New York City. If you're watching this walkthrough, it means you've cleared the registration process through volunteer resources, and you may have spoken to the Health Services Manager in the New York City chapter, whose name is Deborah Hayden. In this walkthrough, I'm just going to explain to you some important basic parts of Volunteer Connection, and also what EDGE is and what are some courses we recommend that you take. So first of all, how to get here. So using either Safari, Chrome, or the Firefox browser, you're going to go to volunteerconnection.redcross.org. And at the time of this video, we are currently in a critical response mode. So this is September 2nd. And basically, we're in this mode just because of the high amount of demand the servers are taking as a response to the operations in the Gulf as an advent to the hurricane that hit the area. So if you are in the critical response mode and you do go to volunteerconnection.redcross.org to log in to get into Volunteer Connections, you will simply add the email that you used during the registration process. You hit submit. Once you do submit, you will then be prompted to go to your email, copy a link that was sent to you into the browser, and you should be at a page that looks similar to mine. If you're watching this walkthrough tutorial and we are no longer in the critical response mode, when you simply go to volunteerconnection.redcross.org, you'll be prompted to put in your email and your password. The difference between the normal Volunteer Connections and the critical response mode version of Volunteer Connections is that this area here will be more populated. So for one, in a normal Volunteer Connections, right next to where it would say your name, there will be a little circle prompting you to add a photo of yourself. That's one thing we definitely recommend that you do, because as a new inductee to the group, it may be difficult for us to know who you are, especially if we're only seeing each other on larger events. So definitely add a photo of yourself as soon as you can. Some important things I want you to be aware of Volunteer Connections is how to submit your hours. So there are two ways to submit your hours. The first way is right here on the main page of Volunteer Connections, where it says submit your hours. So again, for the critical response mode, submit your hours will be here. But for the normal Volunteer Connections, when you see a lot more things popular in this area, you'll see a little box here that'll ask you to submit your hours. In either case, you will go ahead and choose submit your hours. So one thing I would like you to do after watching this walkthrough is to give yourself 1 hour for completing the video. This just also allows me to know who has completed the video and whether or not you're ready to volunteer and take additional steps. So by default, it chooses the day that you click submit your hours. So let's say you did watch this video on an earlier date and you just forgot to upload your hours. That's totally fine. You would just go ahead and click on this and choose an earlier date if need be. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume we're all submitting hours right after watching this video. I'm going to leave the date as the default for today, and I'm going to add 1 hour, and for minutes I'm going to choose 0. For the activity name, we're just going to write Introduction to VC and EDGE. So one thing that you'll notice in the American Red Cross is that we enjoy using these acronyms. So for Volunteer Connections, you will either see the acronyms VC or VCN. So it's either Volunteer Connections or Volunteers Connection Network. And for EDGE, it's just basically engaging something, growth, and education. I will explain that in a moment when we do show the quick walkthrough of EDGE. So assuming that we're watching the video and submitting the hours right afterwards, we give ourselves 1 hour, 0 minutes. Activity name, Introduction to VC and EDGE. For hours type, we're going to choose worked. So there may be some instances later in your volunteer career with us that you would choose on-call and general availability. But for the purposes of this video, we're just focused on worked. For position, if you're watching this video, it means that you should have been added to the NYC Disaster Health Services group. So in positions, you should see something that looks like this. It would say NYC, again, DHS, colon volunteer. You go ahead and select that. If you do not see that, shoot us an email and we'll just add you to the group so you can submit your hours. Towards the end of the video, I will give you some contact information for you to just be aware of. In the comments section, you can just basically tell us anything that you feel that you should let us know. Whether or not that is basically, say you didn't anticipate being out in the field longer than you actually were, or if you just want to say something nice to us, you could definitely add that here and submit your hours. Great. So once you submit your hours, you should be redirected home. So let's just go back home. And if you're not redirected home, just go ahead and click home. Great. So the next thing we're going to show you is something called the group share. So that's just basically the NYCDHS group that we have on Volunteer Connections. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. So at the time of this video, which is September 2nd, we have 48 members in the NYCDHS group. When you do click on the group share, your NYCDHS group page may not look as populated as mine, so I'm just going to go on to someone else's. So I just hid their name just for privacy intentions, and basically what we're going to see is just basically this. So where are we? So this top portion here should remain the same. The only thing that changes is everything else below that. So on the right hand corner, remember I said there are two ways to submit hours. This is the second way. You would just click on hours here and follow the steps that we explained earlier in this video. Right below that, you see some leaders. So there are currently 4 people who are considered leaders for the health services group in New York City. We have Carmela Grande, who is one of the senior leaders for health services. We have Deborah Hayden, who's the manager for health services, in addition to 2 other health groups. We have Christopher Losavio, who is involved in client casework. You may potentially see him around once in a while, or may work with him if you do decide to work in casework projects. And this is me, the engagement lead for health services. So remember in the beginning of the video, we did mention that it's definitely important for us to know who you are just by just in the event that we do not see you out in the field, or we only see you out in the field. If you notice, some members may not have a profile picture, and it's especially a little bit difficult to network with you when we don't have the opportunity to meet you prior to going out into the field. So let's go back to my profile, and I'm just going to show you how to navigate through a couple things. So on the top, you should see a calendar, discussion, and files. These are 3 that we're really going to be focused on right now. For calendar, typically if there are any events that we definitely want you to be aware of, we'll add that in here. Currently, at the time of this video, we're pushing a lot of opportunities for deployment and virtual work. So we'll add those in here, or we'll just notify you by email. Okay, secondly, discussion. So there are 2 main things within the discussions page that I really want you to be aware of. One is the NYCDHS surveys. So occasionally I will be pushing out surveys just to get some feedback from the 48 or however many members we have at the time in NYCDHS. Sometimes these surveys will be anonymous, so you could be as kind as you would like to be, or they may ask for your name, and for those surveys I will definitely give you an hour for completing and giving us feedback. So I haven't submitted a survey in a while, as you can see, as of September 2nd, but I will most likely send out another one later this month. So please be aware of that. So as a new volunteer to volunteer services, once you do go into discussions within the My Group NYCDHS group share and discussions, you're going to go to Welcome to NYCDHS. So I would frequently update this as changes do occur within Volunteer Connections, or any other changes that may occur. I will always have this updated. In addition to this video, once a month or maybe once quarterly, I will update this video to make it a smoother transition. So here I've basically summarized what's in this document right here at the bottom. So if you were to click on this document, it will download and it will look something like this. So I'll first explain this on the discussions page and then come back to this document in a moment. So if you notice here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 things that are bolded, one of which you should already have. So one thing we do ask is that once you've completed this video and submitted your hours, it's to send us a PDF or an image of your CPR certificate and your medical license. So whether or not your medical license is an EMT certificate, a nursing license, a PA, I guess PAs have certificates, and your medical license. And what I will basically do is I will take your license and your CPR certificate and add them to your profile. And this is particularly important because let's say you are going out to an operation that requires just us to check your certifications and your qualifications. We already have those on your profile, and it just saves the supervisor some time trying to track that information down. So we do ask that you take these 4 courses, fulfill these 4 requirements first, as mentioned here. And once you complete these 4 requirements, we'll be able to submit a request for a volunteer badge for you. Once you do complete these 4 things, again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, it's really important for you to add a photo of yourself onto Volunteer Connections. But let's say you added a photo that you don't want to have on your volunteer badge. That's fine. You could just email us the photo you would like to use after completing these 4 requirements, and we'll make sure we submit your ID badge request using that photo. So now let's explain why I only put a couple things here that are from this career path document. So you have the option to become a supervisor when you do join us, and we definitely do recommend everyone become a supervisor if they are joining us in health services. And to become a supervisor, you will need to complete these three steps, which involve taking a couple courses online. So step 1 is usually the easiest to complete, and typically, if you're able to complete these courses, there are additional courses that you can take, which are at the bottom here. Additional courses just make you more prepared for different roles out in operations. So it's definitely encouraged that you take more courses that are listed here on this document. So again, if you do not like the idea of becoming a supervisor, that's fine. We recommend definitely you take these 4 courses, but that you definitely take all the courses within step 1. So how do I find these courses? Great question. So first of all, I just want to explain this document here can be found here in the discussions page and also in files. So we're going to go ahead and click on files first before we move on to finding the courses. So throughout the year, I will add any, say, flyers that may be pushed around, or any frequently used documents that we should all be aware of. So in the frequently used documents section, there are two subfolders, one being the career path. These little letters here at the end, I'll explain what that is in a moment, but that's just basically something called a gap. But if you click on this again, the same document that I was talking about is here for you to download. If you do decide to deploy, there are some documents to be aware of within this sub-tab that you should definitely read about. There will be additional documents that I add onto here with maybe another video like this one explaining what each of those documents are used for. But we'll see what the demand is in a bit. So great. Now explaining what this is. So if you do decide to follow the path of a health services supervisor, you'll be placed in something called a GAP, which is just basically CLS HSSV, and that's explained right here on the top. So the G, the group will be independent client services, so that's CLS. The activity will be health services, you're in the health services group, and the position will be a supervisor. Again, we do encourage you to become a supervisor, but if you feel that this is not in your goals within the American Red Cross, that's absolutely fine. I definitely recommend you take all courses in step 1, but to get a volunteer ID badge with us, we do recommend you take the courses that are in the form bolded. Great. Now, how do I find these courses? So when you are in Volunteer Connections, on the top right-hand corner, you're going to see a couple blue links. The ones that we're going to be focused on in this video, secondly, will be Connect to Edge. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. So when you did, assuming you registered for Volunteer Connections after October 2016, there was something implemented called a single sign-on. So basically the the login information you use for Volunteer Connections should be able to work in Edge. So for me, that was the case. If it is different for you, you could definitely email me and I'll be able to help you troubleshoot this. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in with my credentials from Volunteer Connections. And here I am on Edge. So again, remember, American Red Cross loves using acronyms, and EDGE stands for Engagement, Development, Growth, and Education. So now let's look at some of these courses that we need to take. So I want that volunteer ID badge. So what I'm going to do is the first course to take is the Disaster Cycle Services and Overview. So we're just going to go ahead and just type that in. Disaster Cycle Services and Overview. So notice there are a couple things that sort of pop up. You may see this version with some textbooks near it, or this one with a laptop near it. I'm just going to show you how you could get just basically to this with either one. Let's just start with this one. So here, so I've already completed this course, but the walkthrough is not that bad. If you do click on this one with the textbook, you're just going to go ahead and hit request, and you should be redirected to something like this. And if you hit request, okay, I'm just going to choose yes. If you hit request, you'll be redirected to this page. And you're just going to go ahead and hit launch for that course. So let's say you are not able to complete the course in one sitting. That's absolutely fine. Edge has a timeout for an activity. So let's say you are kicked out for whatever reason. You could just go back to Volunteer Connections. Go back to Volunteer Connections, connect to Edge. You'll be back home. And you could always pick up where you left off by going to Learning, view your transcript, and just go ahead and hit launch. Once you've completed the course, you could find it here in this pull-down menu. So again, going to Learning, view your transcript, you could go right here to this pull-down menu and choose Completed. And you will see all the courses that you've completed. In addition to your courses being here, it will also be on your profile on Volunteer Connections. And that typically updates maybe once a week or so, but those courses will definitely be there too. And if we ever need to verify whether or not you've taken courses, we'll most likely just either ask you to take a screenshot, or we'll just check your Edge account to see whether or not you have all the courses needed for anything that you may want within the American Red Cross. So that explains Edge as simply as possible. Again, we definitely encourage you to take as many courses as you would like. If you do complete all the courses in Step 1 and Step 2, you could, some of these courses are kind of weird with the timing, so it's recommended. It's estimated that the Concepts of Operations Overview course is 19 minutes long, so you could just round it up to, say, half hour. For this one here, I would also say round it up to half hour. If you want, you could just simply say you completed all the requirements of Step 1, and you could even tell me that you've completed all the requirements that are recommended and encouraged. And what I'll basically do is just tally up all these hours and award those hours to you for completing Step 1 HS candidate. And you could do the same for Step 2. Notice for Step 2, right here, this last requirement. So for this step here, you can take this course prior to creating a Edge account. I would recommend that if you are going on to Step 2, once you get to this point right here, let us know. That way we could assign you a Red Cross email, because in order to do casework, a Red Cross email is required to sign up and make an account for something that that's called CAS. So again, once you've gotten to this point, email us. We'll request a Red Cross email for you. That way you could go ahead and complete this if you so choose. Right, so that's one way to find courses, and these are all courses that you could find online. What I'm now going to show you is how to find courses that may be at the chapter or required to come in for a portion. So for example, right here, there's the Disaster Frontline Supervisor and the Disaster Frontline Supervisor Simulation. At the time of this video, it is possible to take these two in one shot at the chapter in person, and it's a 7-hour course. I definitely recommend that you take this online. But courses like that are online are going to be on Volunteer Connection. So we're going to go home. We're going to go to My Chapter. We're going to go down to Disaster Training Class for Volunteers. Slide over to Disaster Training Calendar. We're going to click on that. And basically, these are all the scheduled courses that are ongoing and for the month of September. So some courses that, let's see if there are any courses that we see that you could take. So if you choose to take Psychological First Aid, which is one of the courses in Step 1, right here, there is also an option to take it in person. So you could do that too. So just scrolling through the calendar, you could definitely see if any courses are online. We do definitely encourage you to come to the chapter to take a couple courses, just because of networking opportunities. Meeting other DHS members is always a great thing. So great. That being said, I've explained some pretty basic important features of Volunteer Connections and also how to maneuver through finding courses on Edge. If you have any questions, as to any upcoming events, or if you have any concerns, you could definitely contact us. You could either contact us through the discussions page. Just go ahead, go to discussions, add new, and just go ahead and let us know what you need us to know. Alternatively, let's go here. You could email us. For the quickest response, I would definitely say just email both myself and Deborah Hayden. Debbie Hayden can be reached at deborah.hayden@redcross.org or by this number. I could be reached at this number or my email. I would definitely say CC us both if you want a quicker response. I would also say that if you do call me, I may not be able to respond right away, but I'll definitely return your call. Just leave me a voicemail or shoot me a text. If you have any questions, again, let us know. But otherwise, I will be pushing out subsequent videos as to explain more in depth other features within Volunteer Connections, other features within the discussions and files. I will be explaining some documents that will be in the files section. And also, I would explain something about what is the Edge and how you can move through that. So, thank you. Welcome to DHS. And